Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we are drawing alien pods, and if you stick around to the end of the video, you're going to see how I fill up this entire page with these four concepts. So I start with this one, and then I work my way around. We go over growth patterns, we go over my thought process, and any kind of extra little nuggets that I want to hopefully you guys take away with you on your artistic journey. All right? Now I've time-stamped everything for you if you want to jump around to specific parts, and this lesson caters towards all skill levels, all the way from beginner to advanced. But the same principles apply, and I just hope that you come away with something that you're truly proud of. All right, let's get into it. All right, everyone. Now, just to show you the page that we're going to be working on and the materials, I'm just using simple printer paper, okay? I turned it portrait view, so I have a sample of the sketch over here of the type of thumbnail that we're going to be doing, and it's not very big, printer paper, 8.5 by 11, and we are using the wonderful round stick Bic pen, and you can get these at CVS, Walgreens. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you the exact box that I'm using. Let me just get it out of my desk here. This is it, folks. And it comes with 60 pens. So these are awesome, they're cheap, and you don't need anything fancy to do what we're going to be doing today. Let's jump into it. So, how did I start this? All right, take your paper, take your pen. I'm using a pen today. And we are just going to do a very light outline. Now, when you work with pen, it's going to be a little different. The lines that you put down are 100% permanent. All right, you have a less margin of error with a ballpoint pen, mainly because you can't erase this stuff. And two, the lines themselves they're finer, and your line weight and line quality are much more on display with this. Now, when it comes to alien pods, these are going to differ from exotic plants and alien plants and such. With alien pods, you're going to think about, shape, texture, and pretty much all the sci-fi world building that you can. This first one here, we're going to be thinking about the silhouette, but we're also going to be thinking about growth logic. It's probably a term that you're not used to. So whenever you do something organic like this, and if it's like a parasite that feeds off of something, or if it's a growth or a disgusting, body like this, you need to show how this thing actually grows. Now, when you look at this one, at the base of this disgusting cocoon, there's thick veins. Think of the Upside Down and Stranger Things. You got all these twisty veins that kind of feed the world. All right, so we're going to be thinking along those lines. Now, I want to be careful that it doesn't become a plant. Okay, so there's going to be no leaves, but rather strange, veiny, semi-transparent shapes. Think of the alien egg in the movie Alien, that the face huggers are in. And then if you guys can just think of any movies right off the top of your head that, maybe displaying the same characteristics too. Anything gross, really. I'm also thinking of a strong silhouette. Now, even if you're drawing an alien pod or an alien cocoon, a sac or whatever, put some motion into it. All right, look at this arc that I gave it. Look how light this is. Look at this one over here. Okay, every single corner, nook, and cranny, it looks like one area is growing out of the other and forming and twisting. And, with this gigantic, I guess, plate right here, because it's kind of an exoskeleton, it's protected by these spikes. They're non-existent over here. They're stubs. There's black in here to showcase, hey, I think this thing kind of opens up. It's kind of gross, right? But look at this S-curve right there. It's kind of a zigzag. With something as stationary as just a disgusting alien sac, there could be a lot of movement in this. So think about the movement. That's what we're going to be doing. Now, since these are more timed thumbnails, more advanced thumbnails than your typical 2-minute ones. I'll walk you through this one, and then we'll jump into some time lapse. We'll kind of finish this one off, and I may jump into the other one. And then I hope, hopefully you guys are going to be sticking around, because then we're going to be choosing one and we're going to be dissecting it. And this is going to be fun. So when it comes to dissecting your designs, it means calling out areas that could be a functional feature, calling out areas that you feel may be confusing at first if somebody were trying to interpret your design. As a concept artist, your entire job is to solve problems. So if you can answer all of the problems in your design without you saying anything, then you're pretty much hitting a home run. So you want to aim for that. And we're not all perfect either. So this crazy thing that I'm drawing here, I want to make sure that I'm not drawing just another version of this. So as a concept artist, you want to make sure that you are concepting. Okay, I know it's pretty straightforward and kind of goofy to say, but it's true. You're responsible for giving concepts out, different takes on things. So I think with this one, I'm going to put these strange little openings right here, because maybe they're hollow, maybe you can see through it, and maybe add some thickness in here. I think that would be kind of cool. And there could be other very strange parasitic shapes here, but I just had an idea where we can put some disgusting growths right here. That'd be kind of fun, right? Notice how I'm just playing with the different shapes, allowing the pen to move around. These giant pus sacs, I guess you can call them pus sacs, they're non-existent on this one. So that's going to be a difference maker right away. All right, and maybe this thing is so twisted and bent out of shape that it kind of feels to us like it's in pain. I think it'd be kind of cool to do that. Maybe this is a real living organism. It's not just a cocoon holding something inside of it, although that would be pretty gross, right? That's why we're doing what we're doing. But maybe this thing feels pain too. If it's carrying an embryo, if something horrific is growing inside of it, maybe the shell itself or the encasement itself also feels something. So it wants to make sure that the life force inside of it is protected. And you don't always have to go gross. It could be almost beautiful. I mean, even if it's gross, it's going to be beautiful in its own right. All right, that's one of the coolest things about doing alien stuff is, as much as you stress about, or we stress about anatomy and stuff, we can kind of just do what we want and people will just go, oh yeah, it's alien. Yeah, fine. I have nothing further to say. Happens all the time. It's kind of fun too. Now, one of the things that I'm being very careful of is I don't want any sharp claws or anything of that nature on this one. So to replace these pokey, bony, sharp shapes, I'm going to stick to these rather small growth-like openings. Maybe they're not even openings. Maybe they're pus sacs or embryo of some sort. I don't know. That's why this is so fun. So we're just going to do that. And then this twistiness going on here. I'm really intrigued by that. And I'm not really sure what I want to do, but I'm thinking Last of Us, fungal shapes. Do I want this to be a fungus? No, because it would still resemble plants in some form or another. So I'm thinking, what if we just kind of roll some weird shapes off of here, just semi-rounded. It doesn't really feel like a plant. There's not going to be a root system, so there's not going to be a ground. think about the movie Aliens, when Gorman and Ripley and Vasquez, everybody ends up going to Hadley's Hope. They go inside the colony, and there's a secreted resin all over the walls. It's just gross. It's kind of like a path of intertwining, not necessarily biomech, but it's gross. That's kind of like what I'm envisioning here. So maybe the base of it. Remember what we were talking about with the growth logic? So I'm thinking, how did this thing grow up? Like, what did it have to do? So maybe the base of it is consisting of fatter shapes, just more bulbous shapes, and as it moves up, our little friends here, those little weird oval type shapes, they get smaller and smaller, but down here they get bigger and bigger, and maybe they're semi-transparent. And this is just me thinking out loud. Whenever I draw, I try to just talk to myself, really, but not literally talk to myself, but this inner voice going inside my head, like, hey, what would this exist in? Would this exist in a movie that you like, or does it feel Lovecraftian? Does it feel like it could really belong in some kind of sci-fi fantasy epic? And that's what we want to go for. There we go. Now, this is how I started the base of this one. And we don't need anything fancy here, folks. It's just a ballpoint pen. If you're doing this along with me, just make sure that the silhouette is strong. Okay, the outside shapes. Okay, even if it's super organic like this, just make sure that every shape is readable. This is pretty gross over here, and as a matter of fact, I think what I'm going to do is have weird little shapes come out, almost like they're reaching for something. Maybe, just maybe, it can be a little plant-like, but I want to avoid that. I almost put some hands coming out of here, but I don't think that would be a good idea for the silhouette. Because if I drew a hand out there, then we're not going horror per se, but we're going more alien and intrigue. So I got to be careful of how I do this. Okay, everybody. So that's about a good 10, 12 minutes just to start this thing off. Let's jump into some time lapse. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can watch me. You can draw along with me. All right, let's do it. All right, so I wanted to slow this down real quick to explain some of my techniques for these details in here. When it gets down to the really tiny areas and you're trying to do skin wrinkles, well, if there's skin on this, but all of the little lines and nooks and crannies and everything, I like to lightly shake my pen or pencil back and forth. Those tiny little marks end up overlapping each other. And when they overlap, it creates its own texture. Now, when I started to fill out the details of this next alien pod, and I wanted to make sure that it was different than this one, the scales themselves aren't even. They're not symmetrical. They're not patterned perfectly like snake scales or lizard scales or anything of that nature. Instead, they grow to do the best job that they can to protect what is inside, whether it's, like whatever's growing inside. I don't even know what's growing inside this thing, but it doesn't care about looking pretty. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be even for any of the nature that it lives around or the environment that it lives in. It just has to protect it. So I'm thinking of little areas here and there as I travel up this disgusting shape about how I can manipulate and bend these scales and some of the material wrinkling up. Maybe some of it's dried, but I'm assuming that this thing is rather moist, I guess. I envision this thing in a humid environment, so we'll see when we cross that bridge. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that you can see here that I went from, sorry if that's out of focus there, I went from the very top all the way to the bottom in detail. Now, with this particular one that I'm working on, I don't have to do that. The selling point is this disgusting texture right here. I'm really going for texture in this. Remember, the other one was the growth pattern. So I'm thinking that the ribbing and these strange canals down here, it's kind of like a resin base. It's holding up this thing. So maybe there's possibility of flooding depending on the environment that it's in. These things have to stay safe. And then these ovals that I'm drawing, these egg shapes, maybe there's a fluid of some sort inside of these things that helps be a food source, ideally. Because remember, this thing is a living, breathing creature, and it's a growth, but you can't talk to it or anything, but it's got veins, it's got feelings, it has nerves, you can hurt it, and it probably gets angry. Who's to say that these things don't open up and they shoot, I don't know, like resin dart shapes at you or something poisonous. Okay, there we go. So that's how I would plop in the details here. And then up top, I can thin everything out. Maybe all of them are meeting tightly into these bigger, I would call them mandibles. Maybe they're mandibles. And I just had an idea. What if we put, instead of just the typical spikes that I have on this one, what if we put little hooks right at the end of this thing so it is alive and it can get you? So you definitely don't want to mess with it. We're going to make sure that these hooks all face the different direction. Maybe it's facing a food source. Maybe that's how it senses the food source. Now, this is going to be so much fun. So the selling point obviously is the texture down here. But if once we're done with all three of these designs, because we're going to do another one after this, if I decide to go with this one, this will definitely be prime real estate for calling it out as a functional feature. This thing probably will open up. I will do it at a different angle. What does it open up as? Does it eat you? Does it spray you with a venom? Or who knows what else it does to you. I think that would be fun to explore. But hey, maybe the third thumbnail that I'll be doing here in a minute, maybe that offers an even better idea. So we'll see. I just want to make sure that each one of these feels different. And that's the key. There we go. This is so much fun. So I think what we can do now is, we can wrap this one up, and I will outline this slightly. I'm not going to go overboard into any of the details up here. I clearly gave an indication of what the outer edges are doing. This is the main point right here. I may add some more in here. As a matter of fact, I think I will. Why don't we jump into some more time lapse? And I think that would be a lot of fun. Let's just finish this sucker off, and then we'll jump into the third one. Alrighty, here we go for Alien Pod number 3. So we're going to take advantage of the shape that we have left on the actual page. So typically I do work horizontally, but just for fun, sometimes the portrait view kind of dictates what type of shapes you're going to be putting on your page. So we have a number 1 right here going vertically. We have number 2 going vertical and then shifting to our left. Now down here, I want to make sure that I do not copy what I've done here. The theme is going to be there, yes. Gross alien pods, veins, stretched skin, looks alive, kind of fungus, but not really. So we are going to go down here. I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to do these very light lines going and filling up the space to my left and then my right. Okay, now this is where the markings that I'm putting down kind of resemble the very fast thumbnail sketching that I do. So check out my earlier videos where I go in depth about my thumbnail sketching. It's also linked at the very end as a card on this video. And the other thing that I want to mention as I'm sketching these weird little things is I run a Patreon. So if you check the link in the description below and the pinned comment, I go in depth about my choices of anatomy. And that means if I have to invent anatomy on the fly, how I do that. And make it believable at the same time. So make sure you check that out, and I show behind the scenes on my books that I study and whatever else I'm doing for clients. Okay, now this one, very wavy, and it looks almost like there are parts growing off of this one more so than the other one. Now, I may make this a little more gross, put some secreted resin being stretched out, kind of like slime or saliva. I don't know. Trying really hard not to make the mouth open up to look like a Demogorgon, but it may do it. I'm not sure yet. Speaking of Demogorgon, let me know in the comments below if you guys want to see me actually draw that. I've been thinking about drawing some stuff for Stranger Things that don't exist in the world. I just want to do it for fun because I'm not going to spoil anything if you haven't seen it, but there are multiple dimensions and we're only really catching a glimpse of what could actually exist in those worlds. Okay, so right away, I feel like I'm falling into a trap, and this is my fault. So I'm looking at this, and I'm using comfortable large shapes that I did in this one. Maybe because it's next to me, but I'm also looking at this, and I have similar shapes, but I did change it up with the poison sacks, I guess, or whatever you want to call those. But here I'm doing it again. So I think what I'm going to do now is put some very, very alive shapes right on this rounded part, almost to the point where it kind of looks like a Venus flytrap and it's coming out at us. The other thing is these stalks, I guess, that are growing out of this thing. I'm envisioning it maybe hanging from something, maybe hanging from a rock crevice or something along those lines. I'm not sure yet. Maybe it's almost alive. Well, it can't almost be alive. It is alive. This thing is living and breathing. And this right here kind of looks like a face, doesn't it? So, well, not a face, but a face shape. I'm going to stretch some of these body parts on top of that shape. It's like a big egg. So I have to take into consideration these claws that I'm putting on here. So I'm going to layer those up. Notice how everything is staying very light. So even if I shift my paper to catch new light, that's how light the markings are. And then the light coming in from my studio light over here on the left, it's still catching some of the pen, but I think for the most part you can see it. We need to get pretty creative here because you know what? You guys are going to witness this. I don't care what happens now. I'm going to make this a mouth just because I can. This one is going to be wild. Just a disgusting mouth, almost like The Thing. Because this thing that I'm drawing, it doesn't really have a face. It doesn't have arms or legs or anything. And we don't even know if it bites. But I just keep going back to the thought of a Venus flytrap and how those gnarly teeth, that catch the insects and everything, grow right off of it. I don't know, maybe this thing is layered to the point where it's just one giant mouth and it's hungry. So the other thing that I want to do, if that's the case, is compartmentalize it to the point where it's a focal point, the mouth itself. I don't want that everywhere, otherwise it'll be a sea of sameness, and I don't want that. So over here on the side, I'm going to make it seem like body parts are trying their best to attach to the floor. So if I move this up a little bit, you can see that we have some very tightened, almost rope shapes. Of course, it's definitely not rope, but it could be that secreted resin again, but it's being stretched out so much. And see how I'm just loosely having my pen flow across this shape, and I'm not too worried about detail yet. So remember what I said in the very beginning of this lesson, how when you're sketching with pen, what is down, it's down. Like, you can't erase this stuff. I mean, they have erasers for ink, yes, but you have to be almost certain, or you have to be confident in the act of exploration when it comes to drawing in order to do this. So that's another thing that I want to talk about is the confidence in the act of exploration. So I think a lot of beginner artists don't have that yet, because there's this thought that every mark that you put down has to be perfect and it has to equal what you see in your head. And I think that kind of hinders imagination. So when you're drawing this stuff, just make sure that you're free flowing with these lines and that you're letting it fall where they may. This is very, very strange. I'm not even sure that this thing is going to be a success, but we shall see, right? Kind of looks like a face coming out of here. There's some of the teeth. And I think that the split of the mouth, we may be able to have that travel down pretty far. Just for fun. All the way down. Very, very, very organic. It's definitely looking like the thing, huh? See if we can get it all in there. Yeah, there we go. And this kind of looks like the bottom chin now. All right. Now, over here, we'll even out the design. And we'll put some like stretched slime that's dried out, or resin, or whatever it is, over here on the right. See how light my pen strokes are? Keep it light. The great thing about a pen with a ballpoint, since the lines are so precise, is that you can still treat it like a pencil. It doesn't have to be a completely separate tool to the point where you feel like you can't draw with it like you can with a pencil. You most certainly can. You can still shade with it. You can still draw light. You can draw medium, dark, have all kinds of lines. You can do some really cool shadows, and something that you can do that you can't do with a pencil, you can ink it while you're at it. You can do that too. Now, one thing to help the silhouette is I'm going to make hard decisions and stick to them. This is going to be an opening. It's not going to be an organ anymore. It's not going to be a life-altering pus sac or a venom sac on there. No. This is going to be an opening to maybe we can see the other side of the body over there. Okay, because I think this whole section right here stretching out, let me move this, stretching out to attach to the flooring over there, I think that's going to offer a lot of energy, and I think that's really cool. I'm still not satisfied with this big cone nose. It just looks straight up like the nose now. So, maybe I can have some kind of shape flow back like that, and then attach another big bulbous shape right here. So we'll see, because there may be some extra stretched resin in the back, and it's gonna help with that. Maybe I can put the slit of the mouth all the way down. Just thinking as I'm going. Whenever I sketch with pen, and whenever you guys are going to be sketching with pen, if you are doing it already, commit to those lines. Don't second guess with a pen. Because with a pencil, if you do hair marks, because you're not confident about the length of the line and how clean it is, you can at least shade over that. With a pen, the lines are a little more precise, and you're going to have to work 3 times as hard just to shade over hair. Like second guessing lines, like whoop, whoop, whoop. You don't want to do that. Not unless you're actually drawing hair or some kind of skin texture. You're drawing skin texture like I did here. I'm just going like this. Yeah, you can definitely do that movement. It works. Wow, okay. I don't know what this is, but I'm kind of liking it. Okay, so we have some bigger shapes in the back. Here I need to be careful with the line weight. So since this set of stretched skin or whatever this is in front, it's going to be a little darker. Okay, I got to be happy with it. And then in the back there, it's going to be a little lighter. Just a rounded part of the body. I do not want to add any kind of sharpness right there. All of the sharpness that I'm drawing is going to be up here. And I think now's the time where I can outline some more of these teeth. Right there. And then corners, I like to get a little darker in. And then release the pressure as I work out of that corner. So a couple videos I've done the past month or two are techniques in where I choose a new direction. So any part on this mouth or creature, or whatever you're drawing, with the lines are changing direction, at the point of changing, you do dark to light. Like in between each of these teeth, as the gum is hitting the side of the tooth, right where it hits it, it starts dark. And then the tooth coming down, you actually get lighter. So thick to thin, dark to light. That's why it's very important to practice your thick to thin lines. This thing is not going to have a tongue either. I don't want it to be that predictable. And some of these quote unquote teeth, they're not really teeth. They're just sharp things that help. Well, I guess they are teeth, you know. In a way, maybe we are drawing a giant mouth. Maybe that's what this is, and I just didn't know it at first. But I will say, I'm more confident in the page now because I didn't want the third one to be too similar to these. So we don't have a mouth for these. Not at all. This one at least has a sharp exoskeleton plating. This one has the weird venom sacs or the yolk or whatever you want to call it, with the little hooks at the top because it's like growing towards a light source, growing towards the food source. This one is just a straight up banger. Like it'll eat your face off if you walk next to it. Maybe we can kind of go all out with it. Why not? And that means somewhere down here where we got to think about the growth factor, like how it attaches to the floor. You know, what if we have some arms coming out? So I always thought that it would be amazing to draw plants that start as plants, and as they grow and mature, they turn into creatures. And then when the root system is happy with how the thing turns out, it just walks away. It'd be kind of cool. Okay, so I don't want to get overboard inside that mouth. Yeah, because that's not going to look right. But I know what will look right. More teeth up here. Why? Because we can. And this thing is not holding back on its viciousness. If you're going to draw something evil and mean and predatory and apex, go all out, guys. This is what I tell so many creature designers, especially those of you that want to be mentored. I run a mentorship, and if somebody wants to design creatures under my mentorship, I always have to tell them, push yourselves. You know, especially if you're looking at reference and you can't figure out why your stuff looks boring all the time. It's not that you're looking at reference. That's amazing. That's a given. You have to do that. But it's cookie cutter. You know, you're looking at things matter-of-factly. So just look at reference, and then you can start breaking the rules and then going all out. If you're drawing a creature with wings, don't do your typical 2 wings and, oh, look at it is, there it's flying. Do 6 wings. You know, or do 1 giant large wing with smaller wings coming off of it. It'd be kind of weird. Okay, see how these lines are going through here. And we can't forget, we got some time lapse coming up too. So, you know, you can stick around and watch me do this third one. Because once we do all 3, guess what? We're going to combine elements of these 3. And we're going to do a final, but we have to do some call outs here too, just so you know what's going on. And I'll teach you about call outs in a second. I'm entering flow state and I love this. It's so much fun. Got those tiny little teeth right there. Don't want to be anywhere near this thing if it's hungry. There we go. Now the chin down here, I have to think about what's going on. But let's jump into some time lapse and you can watch me place details around this. Look at my thought process, my decision making. Draw along with me too. And then once we're done, we're going to analyze what we did for these three. And then you can draw along with me as we're approaching our final design so that we can come up with something that we're truly proud of. Let's do it, folks. All right, everyone, we are at that stage where we're going to combine elements from all three of these. Now, as I was stopping my previous recording and looking over my page, I realized I don't need to start on a brand new sheet of paper. We are going to sneak it on down here in the lower left corner. So we're going to keep this cohesive. It's almost going to feel like it's growing right next to this one, right below this one, and with this one too. So this is how I'm going to start it. And I'm going to find elements that I like. I like that point, and I like these spikes coming off of the plating. I love the cordyceps feel for this with the little hook fingers at the end, the parasitic appendages, and I also like the fluid sacs. And then the sinister aspect of this one. I mean, this is crazy looking. So maybe it will have a mouth on it, but I think sharp shapes with plating, cordyceps, and then these randomly placed air sacs, air holes to help the venting of the creature. And then of course we're going to have some anchored support too, and it's probably going to grow right into what we have here. It's not going to be as prominent, as large as this one, but it'll fit nicely over here. So let's get started. All right, I'm going to move this down here, and I'm going to start by just getting a nice silhouette in here. Now, one thing I'm going to make sure of is that all of the bumps and all of the twistiness and the veins and the cords and everything, they're going to be in constant movement. That's what I want. I'm really interested in the base of this one, because I love the veins and the arteries and organs, I guess you can call it, growing up like that. So maybe it's going to wrap around that shape, and then it's going to be popping out of here. It almost feels like I'm drawing a giant creature organ, which is kind of cool. And then I'll just draw some of those pus sacs right here. Again, this is just to start off everything. Will it change? Yes, it might. But, you know, I got to embrace that. So I have to make sure that all the lines that I put down, I'm not becoming married to all these designs at all. I don't know where they're going to go or how they're going to end up. But I do know that I want to make this thing as disgusting as possible. And what better to do it than draw it with the other ones, just so it can feel like one big, gross, parasitic family. Okay, this definitely has that gnarly curve going on. I was really intrigued by this one up here, just because how it branched off to the left. Well, this one's a lot more violent. So it's growing up, it's going down, and it's swooping right back up. And I'll probably end it with the like this plating up here opening up. So we'll see how it goes. There we go. Okay, this is looking pretty good. So we could speed this process up as I get the outline in, and then we'll start putting on the details. All right, now we're ready to go into some details. Okay, so the shapes that I chose, just to kind of go over this again, the pointiness of this, I put it right here into the hard plating. Okay, and I put a little of it over here. The cordyceps going in the direction that it needs to grab food. Put a very wavy, almost like the beginning stages of searching for it. Doesn't really know where it is, doesn't sense it, but it knows that something is near. And then I put in the fluid sacs, coupled with the strange organic veins that are at the bottom. The resin that's stretched, I may put some in between there to kind of show a really cool 3D effect, you know, foreground, middle ground. But I'm not sure yet. The bottom of it isn't really important. I think the selling point that I want to do now is going to be up in this region. So this is where most of the details are going to go. Is it truly a continuation of these three? It could be. It could be. Or it could just be another one. I'm not sure, because the thing about concepting and concept art for games and movies is that even when you think you land on a final, guess what? You're going to refine it again. And sometimes you need to take a step back and keep doing that. So we're going to put some details on these now. And the way I like doing it is I like looking for the big shapes first. And we put in a decent silhouette. Maybe we'll put some of these fluid sacs close together to where they're actually touching. Or there's some skin in between there for separation. It's probably the best idea too. One thing that I need to establish just for myself, I kind of got carried away there, is the overall silhouette of the outside of it. And when I started adding in all these little sharp places, I wasn't really paying attention to how many I was actually drawing. So I need to be careful about that. I'm just going to walk around the edge here with my pen. It's funny how I personify it like it's human. It's going to walk around there. Put that around there. The cool thing about a pen is the lines are just so precise. You just have to treat it well. You know, you respect the pen will respect you. When you try to get the pen to do too much, that's when it backfires on you. And speaking of pens, I get asked a lot, you know, like, how do you draw and it doesn't bleed ever? Well, there's two things that I like to do. One, I throw out all my bad pens. So if you have one that's been sitting in your drawer for 6 months and you just decided to bust out with that pen and start drawing, you get ink spots. That's what's going to happen. You know, a lot of time the ink just pools. It just pools. A lot of times it dries right inside that reservoir. So then when it's activated again, it all comes out at once, because that, you know, the dry ink acts like a cork. All of a sudden it pours out and then it blotches. And just don't buy crappy brands either. I always like Bic. You know, you get these super cheap pens that are off brand and they claim to be premium. They're not. They just put premium on the package to make it sound good. Just buy Bic. That's all you need. All right. So giving outline to some of these tendrils, I guess you can call them. I say it with a question, like I don't even know. I don't. It's just mimicking what I put up here. But these are a lot more active looking, so you know they're moving around. I'm hinting at the mouth over on the side here. However, it's not a mouth. It's more of something's going on this right side that needs protection. We don't know what that is yet, and it's okay, because remember the decision that I made with this area being the focal point. So that's what I want to do. I'm going to turn the paper this way, upside down, just for a little bit. It's probably going to be a little jarring here for a second. I just want to make sure that my hand is creating the best lines possible. There were some awkward angles on there, so I have to make sure that it's turned correctly. There we go. I'm not spending way too much time on any one area. I'm just giving these a nice outline. Not pressing too hard, just hard enough to where it darkens it a tad. See, there you go. Now, this is looking pretty decent. And I'm not going to touch that part anymore until I start putting a lot of details on there. So I'm pretty happy with it. Okay, there we go. Hopefully you guys are having fun with this. I'm having an absolute blast. The cool thing about alien pods and parasitic cordyceps and strange growths from other planets is that you can break so many rules in anatomy. You still have to have it be functional. I read a comment not too long ago about when I was sketching alien shapes, and somebody said that you can break the rules and it doesn't even matter because nobody will care. It's like, well, no, that's not the case. If something is alien and you could just start putting body parts wherever you think it is and nobody will say anything, that doesn't mean that you're making it believable. You still have to make it functional. You don't want to give yourself the lazy excuse of not having to look for reference. You just draw things that don't need it. Everything needs reference. Even if it's organics and you're making organic shapes up on the fly, just knowing what shapes look good with other shapes, that's a practice in itself that you need to get better at. And you can learn a lot about that by drawing trees, rocks, and roots, which is something that I have a lot of beginner art students do in my mentorship. Weather permitting, you go outside to a park and you just try to find an area that has rocks, trees, and roots all together, preferably, like a nice lake or a stream. If you live near a forest or something, you can go travel in there. And if you are unable to do that, you can always Google search the images. Just make sure that everything is high res, and it'll definitely pay off. All right, so remember those strange little air openings right there? Yeah, I need to figure out where I want to put those too. Probably right down here. There's some openings, and I'll need to put those in little crevices that are already made, just so it'll look decent. There we go. A lot of strange sounds outside. I got my my window down just because my radiators give off tons of heat in this place, and I don't want to burn up as I'm drawing. Okay, remember that technique I was telling you guys earlier, where if I want to do veins or rocky shapes or some kind of hardened shell, if I shake my hand like this, and all of the tiny little pen markings go on top of each other. You can do this with a pencil too. It creates its own texture. You can do tree bark really fast with this technique. You can do creature skin, dirt, rock texture, anything that looks rough. Be surprised. Or strange alien stuff like we are doing together. Look down at your pictures right now. And what does your creation look like? Is it believable? Are there body parts on there that are intriguing you? Maybe, just maybe, you started off with something in mind, and all of a sudden the direction changed for the better. You have to allow that to happen for yourself. So whenever I mentor students, I try to reassure them that when you start putting lines down for a creature, for a character, and it doesn't look like what it did in your head, it's probably for the best. Because what was in your head didn't make any sense. You just knew you needed to draw something like it. Well, drawing something like it means putting your thoughts on paper, like we're doing now, and accepting the progression of it. That's the nitty-gritty. A lot of people don't accept the progression of their concepts. They just draw and draw and draw and hope that the first thing they put is awesome, so that doesn't psych them out. And if artists get psyched out because the very first thing they draw is not good or attractive, then they think they either suck at drawing or the design isn't good enough, and they need to abandon drawing altogether, and then a year later they start up again. Yeah, that's happened. Seen people dust out their sketchbooks, sitting dormant for 6 months, and they draw one thing, and it's like, yep, still suck. And then they just don't draw for another 8 months. So just, hopefully you accept the pep talk that I'm giving you, because I love you guys, and I want to see you do well. But you guys got to make it easier on yourselves. All right, so we are getting into some fun details now. Who doesn't like details, right? Well, that's what we're doing. And, as I'm looking at my concept page here, traveling up and down the page, there's things that I can add to this that would, just make it absolutely insane. But I'm dealing with the constraints of the space that I have by design. I didn't want to give myself a whole other page. I'm trying to think logically here. I'm trying to think in the point of view of a client. When we, as concept artists, fill our pages up, we think that more designs are better. And that's not the case. Good designs are better. So for example, if this project that I'm working on right now is showing you guys, this is just for fun. This isn't for a client. It's not for a game or anything. It's just fun, parasitic drawing from another world. But if this was for a client, and they ask for some concepts, well, we have on our way to four of them now. That's good. That's a good amount. A lot of times it's not how many you do, it's how well it's done. Happens a lot in portfolios too, with people asking how many pages you should put in it. I don't mean to go on a side tangent there, but I think this is really important, as we sketch these details in. If you're making a portfolio online and you have what appears to be 20, 30 different projects and you just want to fill it because you think the number is going to suddenly make you more hireable, that's not the case. While there is no magic number, the good rule of thumb is just make sure that the quality outweighs the quantity. That's it. Now, if you have equal quality among different disciplines and you can do a lot, that looks really good, especially if you want to be a generalist. If you want to be a generalist for a game studio, you want to do vehicles and environments and props and creatures and characters and armor and UI, all of it. You think you could do UI? You better make sure that the execution is 100% equal across everything. I really mean that. No mediocre pieces in there. It may take a little patience to make sure that you compile the necessary work in order to make sure everything looks good. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot if you do not do that. You got to give yourself time. Okay. So we're bringing in slowly the elements from all the other ones. We are. I realize that as I'm drawing this, I haven't drawn anything slimy yet. I haven't. There's nothing slimy. I mean, this could be, like, I can paint this and just make it, give little specular highlights to make it look wet, but I think it's time for some weird oozing liquid just dripping off of this, connecting to the other parts. And since I'm doing this with a pen, we'll find out later how I can sketch around this with a pen if I want to, make sure that I don't sketch over the liquid, all the highlights and everything. I can also make the base look very gross, almost like just one giant set of creature intestines. Like, I don't know. The other thing, since this area is the focal point, we can probably stretch some goo out. I hate that word. It's so gross. Goo. My kids like saying that word, especially if they're watching, Poppy Playtime or one of those weird shows that they like watching. My youngest just turned 6 and my oldest is about to turn 8, so they love the Poppy Playtime and all the Five Nights at Freddy's type stuff. And it's a lot of strange creatures in this shows. It's pretty cool. Okay, so here, I added in some goo, but I'm not gonna fixate on that for a while. These tendrils coming out could most certainly have the goo. It definitely, because you could You could draw it wrapped around these tentacles. I should probably do that right now just so I can shade around it, because there's a pen. I can go over it, but I have to be very careful. Like up here, definitely. This could be poison. Like, who knows? It'd be fun to paint, that's for sure. I'm pressing very lightly. Right there. And then single row hatching. So I'm not cross hatching, it's just one row. Notice how I'm keeping the same direction, 45-degree angle to our upper left. And I'm going to travel up this tendril all the way to the tip. Okay, now, this is where the fun with depth can come in, because you know, these shapes up top are going to be casting shadows to the places down below. So technically, this could get another set of shadow, or just an overlapping shadow. So I can bring that around. One thing I have to be careful of is, since the shadow is on the tendril, it's rounded, because that's what the casting would look like on top of it. Same thing with out here to the edge. So now it looks like whatever this plating is, let's just make that a plate. And it's casting the shadow over that. It'll follow that shape. So it'll look pretty good. Beautiful thing about ballpoint pen. You know, you can make hatching and it still looks good. Yeah, I don't know what, I mean, yes, it would look good with a pencil too, but for some reason, I don't know why, black ballpoint pen just looks good. If you guys are avid pen users and you have a pen that you would like to see me use in here, like pen and ink, calligraphy pens, or something sketching that I can use for sketching, can't do it with calligraphy, but let me know. I would love to experiment with these, because can't go wrong with ink. It's so much fun. Okay, there we go. That fun, aquarium dripping sound I have in my place right now because of the heaters. Probably hear that. I can't filter that out either. Guess it adds just nice atmosphere, doesn't it? Oh, we're getting those details in. Oh boy, it's looking gnarly. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to speed up the process. Okay, so you can watch me fill the rest in with details, and you can draw along with me. Comment below if you have some questions about art. One thing I do want to mention before we get into the time lapse, I do run a mentorship too, so email me at bobbyrebholz@gmail.com. Just check the links in the description for everything. All right, let's jump into some time lapse. All right, everybody. So there we have it. This is a combination of the other 3 alien pods that we have. I hope you enjoyed going on this little journey with me, and I hope that you produced something that you're proud of. Now, if you've never drawn anything like this before and this was your first go at it, especially using pen, doing something organic, this is an ongoing process. So if you don't feel good about it, keep it. Don't cross it out. Don't do anything drastic, because you may come back to this later and start adding elements that you just didn't think of before. Now, are these 100% solid concepts? I mean, for now, they'll do. They may turn into something later. I'm going to keep them. I may even color them for a later lesson. Let me know in the comments below if you want to see these colored some point in the future. And also let me know what you're working on and if you had a breakthrough with this. So I want to thank everybody again for watching these lessons, and until next time, peace.